Now that we know how to check that we can redirect our web browser to a specific page, we should probably put a test in to our instance when we create a user, because when we create a user and we submit valid information, we actually redirect. Currently, we redirect to the list of users, but we're going to change that as part of this test, because the more obvious thing that we want to do is actually end up at the profile page for the user that we just created. So let's write a new test, and redirects to profile page. And this is, again, going to have to be a request type. And the point being, if we just create a user, we want to see the details about that particular user. We don't want to see the the listing of all the users, especially if we have a large website and we have a lot of users. We might not see the user that we just created. So let's go ahead and do a get, but not a get. We should probably remind ourselves what create does. And what a create does is that it does a post to our user's path, and not a get like before. And as soon as our rake gets done, we can see that the create causes a post to happen. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a post to user's path, and now we need to give the information that we wanted, because we're not going through Capybara, we're not doing the fill in or clicking button, and so we need to remind ourselves that the params is going to have a hash with a user, and that user is going to have these 3 fields. So the user is going to have a name, and we can just go John Doe. The user is going to have an email, and let's do that. John Doe example.com, and a password, our handy dandy password. And I am going to close that before off. And actually, I'm going to slightly reformat this because it's a multiple line. Just to be consistent, I'm going to make this a do, and then we can see that it's multiple lines, even though it's one command. We're going to post to the user's path, and we're going to pass it a hash with our user, and that user value is going to have a name, an email, and a password. And what we want is we're going to use our specify again, that we expect our response to redirect to, and now this is kind of interesting. We want to redirect to a particular user, but we don't know the ID of the user yet because we haven't created them yet. So we need a way to be able to identify that which user we just created here is the user ID that we want to redirect to. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give the test a particular note that indicates that we know a new user is going to be created. Remember that user and give that an ID. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say user path, and we're going to say this is going to assign to an instance variable named user. And so let's walk through this really carefully here. Let's first go like this, make that so we expect our response to redirect to a specific user path. The user path is the path that is assigned to the instance variable named user. So let's just save this here. Let's edit our user controller to remind ourselves in our create we have this user path at user, and so we're going to create a new user. It's going to get a new ID, and so it's going to know that this user that was created is going to have a specific ID, and we're going to remember that so we can get the right user ID. Otherwise, we'd have no idea what ID to pass in here, and we'd never be able to check that we're actually going to that user path. So that's a long test right there, but or explanation for a short test maybe is a better way to say that. But what we're going to check is that when we try to create a new user, that we end up going to that particular user's profile page rather than the users. And we fail, which is good because we're not doing that. And we look at this failure carefully because we might see that. We expected it to go to this ID. That was the ID for the user we created. But instead, we just went to users right here, /users, and rather than /users/158. So they're different URLs, and that's good. That's what we expect. And so we can go ahead now and make the change in our code to pass this. So what we should be doing is we should be going to a user path rather than a user path. So what we would expect here is user path for that user. And that's a verbose way of doing it, and I'm going to show that passed, and then I'm going to show you the shortened convention that most Rails users use because it's obvious when you say redirect to some object that you mean the path that points to that object. So most Rails developers just don't bother with saying user path. If I give a user object, the only possible path that makes sense for that object is the path that points to that particular object. So if we run that test again and we just say redirect to @user, the web framework is smart enough to say, oh, that user is a user type, and the user type is pointed to by a user path, and so I'll create the user path appropriate. And so this is what you normally see in most Rails applications, that you redirect to that user, and you actually do tend to redirect to the profile page in the create, not to the main list of users. And so we have made our website act a little bit more like we want, at least in testing. If we go ahead and try testing it out in our server to verify that it does what we want, we hopefully will see the behavior that we are expecting. So if we go here and we go to new, what we will see is testing 5, sample.com, a password off screen, and when we submit this, we go to that profile page and we get this nice welcome message like we had got before, except that was on the listing of the page. And that's a really nice touch that we're able to keep. So we have made our site be a little bit more like we expect a website to act